Evaluating secondary sources of tax law. The objective is to identify and understand the secondary sources of the federal tax law. Text page references are from Sawyer's 10E. This slide shows the primary sources of federal tax law: statutory, administrative, and judicial. Let's review the definition of primary authority: an element of the federal tax law that was issued by Congress, the Department of the Treasury, the Internal Revenue Service, or a federal court. Now let's contrast that with the definition of secondary authority: an element of federal tax law that was issued by a scholarly or professional writer and thus carries less precedential weight than elements of the tax law issued by a primary source. Examples are textbooks, journal articles, and treatises. This is the research screen from Checkpoint, and notice the primary source materials, but also notice the two components of secondary source materials: the editorial materials and news and current awareness. It's fine to use secondary source material as part of the research, but try to base conclusions on primary source. Secondary sources or authority. Use these to locate and understand the primary sources. Secondary authority is useful when conflicting primary authority exists, there appears to be no extant primary authority, or the researcher needs an explanation or clarification of the primary authority. Do not use secondary sources in the research memos if primary sources exist. Find the primary sources. Step 3 of the tax research process is to locate authority. The secondary authority consists of annotated services, topical services, court reporters, and tax journals. Let's look at annotated services. These are organized by code section numbers. This is a commercial tax service reference collection, a secondary source of federal tax law. It includes the code, regulations, and ruling analysis, judicial case notes, other indexes and finding list, and again organized by code section number. Let's compare that to a topical service. Again, it's a professional tax research reference collection that of course is secondary, including the code, regulation, and ruling analysis, judicial case notes, other indexes and findings, but now these are organized by general topic. So it depends on the vendor of the tax service that's used. Continuing with secondary authority, let's look at court reporters. Court decisions are published in sets of bound volumes called court reporters. The vendors have their own type of reporter. The publisher, Checkpoint, Thomson Reuters, has the American Federal Tax Reports, and CCH has the United States Tax Cases. Reuters and CCH provide citators. Citators represents a reference source that enables the researcher to follow the judicial history of court cases. Now, another secondary authority, tax journals. By reading tax journals, a tax practitioner can become aware of many current problem areas in taxation and increase awareness of recent developments in the tax law, tax compliance matters, and tax planning techniques and opportunities. It's important to stay current. Now work with this material using the discussion questions that are shown on the slide.